guys, you know, just just living their life, man, and they're about to play in the Super Bowl in a few hours. How do you possibly think, just kind of giving the way some of these guys roll, that that's not going to come back and bite you? And it absolutely is. But it also raises the bigger question about COVID itself and the American response to it, or the lack of response. I mean, the stuff is spiking everywhere. We talk about it every single day. It's unfortunate. It's sad. And again, it seems like our only hope out of this at this point, especially given the failure of the federal government, is that we get a vaccine that ultimately works into the hands of everybody. We're close to that, but this is not the movie Outbreak. Dustin Hoffman and Cuba Gooding Jr. will not fly in a helicopter, dropping doses off simultaneously around the country, and all the sick people get well. Sadly, there are a lot of people who are not even showing symptoms yet. We're going to have a really bad January.
Yeah.
And we're going to lose a lot of really good people because folk just are not taking this serious and won't do a simple thing like wear a mask.
Yeah. I think, well, just so, and Great Britain approved Pfizer's vaccine yesterday, right? So it was the first one that's been approved by a country. And actually, I think next week and the week after, we're going to be looking at Pfizer and Moderna. And then AstraZeneca did a vaccine that they did with the University of Oxford that's actually now going to be put through its paces to see if it can get fast-tracked as well. So there are vaccines that are on the way. And, at least for Moderna and Pfizer's vaccines, they have 90+% efficacy, which is really high for a vaccine, very high for a vaccine. And I think it's going to be helpful. I think the challenge we're trying to figure out right now, folk are trying to figure out, will this sort of become a vaccine that's almost annual, like the flu? Mm-hmm. Or, will it have longer term? Can we really get to a place of deep immunity and sort of wipe it off the face of the earth? So, really appreciative of all that. But, when you talk about all these sports teams and everything that they're doing, I just wrestle very deeply with everything, without having the crowds there. Part of it is, can you get back to the love of the game? Right? Mm-hmm. Not the love of money. I mean, even though they're still getting paid, but can you get back to the love of the game? Can you get back to playing basketball or football or baseball or whatever just for the sake of loving to play it, and not about all the money and all the other stuff that come along with that?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's, you're right. I think in this moment, COVID has challenged all of us to go back to what is most important. I was having this conversation, we opened up kind of joking about church, but the church reaction and houses of faith also really demonstrate, I think, in this moment, getting back to what is most important. So I was talking to, in fact, Aunt Young and I had this conversation, one of our regular listeners who also pastors a church down in Maryland. He's teaching a class to some of the new ministers who are coming in, so part of our cycle in the AME church, and it's about worship, right? Mm-hmm. And so, as we were talking, I was like, at the end of the day, this is a great moment to teach that course, because typically it is, here's what we do. This is an AME liturgy. This is what you follow, kind of paint by numbers. You can add some things, you could take some things away, but pretty much this is it. Now in COVID-19, everything is digital, everything is virtual, and you condense a service from 2 hours, because ain't nobody gonna watch 2 hours online on Sunday morning. So most of us have fallen between 45 minutes to an hour. It forces you to pick that which is most important. Mm-hmm. And I think that is, again, a metaphor for 2020, yeah. that a lot of what has happened in this time, whether it's how we celebrate the holidays, how we have relationships, families, friends, that this has created an atmosphere where, if nothing else, you have really got to make some decisions about ultimately what is most important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is about what's most important at this moment in time.
Yeah.
So
yes. Hey, man, I saw that Joey Temple passed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, man, I am so sorry to hear. I just saw it online as well. Saw that this morning when I got up. Joey was a great guy, man. I think like the great conversations I would have with him through my last, 4 or 5 years in relationship with WURD in different ways. And that's a big loss, and a person who absolutely loved black folk, loved Philadelphia, and had a love for the struggle. Um, I wonder what Joey would say about this article that came out by Janice Armstrong,
Hmm.
one of our very dear friends and dear sisters who doesn't mind putting controversial stuff out there. So Janice has a new piece that's out. And again, this is certainly one knowing Joey that would get him going into a great conversation. It's about Barack Obama's comments recently about defunding the police.
Hmm.
And so Janice ultimately comes down that she agrees with Obama that the terminology of the demand, because it is a demand, right? It's not a slogan, but it's a demand.
Right.
But like all demands have to have slogans.
Hmm.
Well, they don't have to, but they typically do. Obama's take is this, and again, let me just kind of lay it out for you. See if I can find it in his own words. Obama believes that the slogan itself is here, let me just read. He says the slogan "defund the police," or this is actually Janice, was a misnomer from the start because it sounds as if all activists are calling for a complete end to law enforcement as opposed to systematic changes.
Hmm.
Now, let me just say this: that this is the debate within the defund community. All right. Like them, I have always kind of wrestled with the term because I just know that for some people they can't hear past the term.
Right.
They hear the word defund and they shut down, and you're trying to have a conversation about real substantial change and they can't get past it.
Right.
But there is a real debate within those of us who have adopted the idea of defunding the police on some level. On the one hand, there are people who say defund means deep financial cuts and reallocations to how public safety is handled, that it recognizes that you'll always have some form of policing, but that it will never be 6,600 cops in Philly. It may be 3,300 with another $300 million put into other kind of things that make us safe, mental health workers, money for young people, better wages, better schools, etc. But bro, there are people who are passing petitions in Philly, credible organizations, and I've had some debates with folk that defund for some people does mean
Oh yeah.
the abolishment of police.
That's right.
And in Philadelphia, there's a petition going around, the abolishment of police in 5 years, no police officers ever again, and no carceral system, so no prisons, no jails, none of that at all. Now, we're up on a break, so before we unpack that, let me just let that sit with everybody for a moment, because I am truly interested in our listeners who represent a lot of the folk or who are related to a lot of the folk who are in neighborhoods that are deeply impacted. And I do want to get your feedback about whether or not we really ought to, is it possible, I should say, is that vision a reality that in 5 years we could have a city like Philadelphia with zero police presence at all and zero places to hold and detain people who are having a hard time being around others? This is the Power Hour. Sit with that. And if you're on Facebook Live, you can start putting your thoughts and ideas in the chat, because today we truly want to hear from you. We'll be right back.
Seniors, does your doctor regularly reach out to check on you? Can you walk into your doctor's office and see them if you need to? Do you have your doctor's cell phone number, and can you call them anytime, day or night? At Dedicated Senior Medical Center, their only specialty is caring for seniors. Dedicated makes it easy to get the primary care you deserve. Doctors spend more time with patients than the doctors you may be used to. They offer telehealth visits, help you get your medications, and even make sure you get to your appointments. If your doctor isn't treating you like family, it's time to say yes to Dedicated Senior Medical Center. Call Dedicated Senior Medical Center today to schedule a visit and find out what you're missing. Call 267-443-1900. That's 267-443-1900. Appointments are available now.
In Pennsylvania, it's now illegal to sell tobacco products, including cigarettes, cigars, chewing tobacco, vapes, or electronic cigarettes to anyone under 21. Stores can get fined up to $1,000 for selling tobacco to someone who is underage. Know the law. Check IDs. Post your retailer license. Make sure only employees have access to tobacco products, and only sell tobacco products to customers aged 21 and older. Paid for with Pennsylvania taxpayer dollars.
Einstein Healthcare Network salutes all those on the front lines, keeping our communities healthy and safe. Thank you for all that you do. And to everyone doing your part by staying at home, we thank you. Working together, we will continue to slow the spread of coronavirus. Einstein is here for you, just like we've always been.
Tune in Saturdays from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. to hear Empire Capital and Consulting founder Mark Palmer's show titled Black Money, Black Power. This show centers around black money and how black power is derived from money. Tune in every Saturday from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. Black Money, Black Power, hosted by Mark Palmer.
Monday through Thursday, keep it locked to WURD Radio. At 6 a.m., start your day with the Power Hour, hosted by Bishop Dwayne Royster and Reverend Mark Kelly Tyler. At 7, it's Wake Up with WURD with Solomon Jones. At 10 a.m., it's Reality Check with Charles Ellison. Then at 1 p.m., it's The Source, hosted by Andrea Lawful Sanders on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, and the Black Women's Leadership Council on Wednesdays. At 4 p.m., it's Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro. Then at 7, it's Save Space with Sincerely Sarita. At 9 p.m., round up your day with Keeping It Real with the Reverend Al Sharpton. Keep your dial locked to WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Streaming live on WURDradio.com and the WURD Radio app. Or watch live on WURD TV via Facebook and YouTube. WURD Radio. Independent Black Media. Now, a WURD weather update. Here's NBC 10 First Alert meteorologist Bill Henley.
Clear and cold this morning, but sunshine is on the way, and that'll warm us into the low 50s this afternoon. Clouds move in tonight. Not as cold as a result, down to 39 tomorrow morning and 52 in the afternoon, but a mostly cloudy day Friday with a chance of an afternoon shower. Then soaking rain arrives Friday night and Saturday with some chilly temperatures and gusty winds. I'm NBC 10 First Alert meteorologist Bill Henley with your most accurate forecast. Count on it.
You're listening to WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Independent Black Media.
Welcome back to the Power Hour. This is Dwayne David Royster, along with Mark Kelly, the Senator Tyler. We are here. You listen to the Power Hour. We're here Monday through Fridays from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. to bring you the latest in news, happenings around Philadelphia, and, of course, our opinion. Now, today, we're going to open up the phone lines for a little bit because we want to hear your comments and thoughts on this question about defunding the police. Defunding the police. What does it mean? What's the fight? What are we doing? What are we saying as we are addressing the defund issue all around the city of Philadelphia? We're talking about a conversation that Janice Armstrong had in the Inquirer column in the Inquirer after President Barack Obama addressed this issue the other day and began talking about it. Now, we've already got stuff happening live right now on the line on our Facebook page. And so we invite you to check all that out and to see where you might fit in or not fit in these particular issues.
Can I tell you, this is what I'm saying now. When you get down to it, this conversation, and again, Barack Obama, I think what he was trying to say was taken out of context. Mm-hmm. And, because folk, let's be honest, a lot of black folks still are in their feelings about Barack. It's like, oh, he's just trying to be a centrist. He's just trying to appeal to white folk. Well, I mean,
he is a centrist, and there's nothing. That's part of who he is. That's who he is.
But my point is that look, he did win twice as president of these here United States with the worst possible name anybody could have at that time, Barack Hussein Obama. I mean, like as in Saddam Hussein. I mean, in the middle of a quote unquote war on terror, and he's black and he's from Chicago. I mean, seriously. and yet he won twice. So I think he knows a little something about messaging and the idea that a whole lot of folk have never won anything, not even like school president in 6th grade, are trying to lecture him when all he's saying is that you have a statement that represents a movement that is problematic for a lot of people. That's all he's saying. And he says, you know, I have said as much before. I support defunding the police from the position that I'm speaking of. Again, because inside the movement, there are multiple ways of looking at it. But here are two things on social media already that represent the extremes. Lois, one of our regular listeners, says, Lois and Gary are kind of on the same page. Lois says, we could not have a city with zero police, ! And Gary comes behind that and says the same thing, similar. He says, we're going to argue over the saying, defund the police. Of course, we can't get rid of police. This is all about getting rid of the bad police. How do we do that? Now, and there was somebody else on here who actually, I think, said, absolutely, yes, you can. Maybe it was Joe Simmons. Yeah, Joe was saying abolish the police. So within our own community, there is great divide. Let me just ask you, in a city of 1.5 million people, whether it's Philadelphia or anywhere else,
yes,
is it possible with the ways in which, you know, anonymity allows people to go and do things that you would not do in a small country town where everybody knows everybody? In a city of 1.6 million people, is it even logistically possible to have a city that big with the kind of things that just happen in human nature without somebody who periodically has the responsibility of breaking up fights, you know, intervening when people pick up weapons, just some of the nitty-gritty stuff of life? Help me understand, how is that actually possible? That's where I struggle.
It's not. Let me just be straight up. So, I mean, look, I think defunding the police as a jumping off point for a conversation about police reform, I think is really important. And I think the deeper conversation we have to have is around public safety. What does public safety look like in the city of Philadelphia? And we know, you and I have talked about this. We've talked about it on air. We've talked about it on other shows. We've talked about it in newspaper articles we've been interviewed in, mostly you've been interviewed in, is that police, a lot of the calls that police get, they are ill-equipped to deal with, right? They are just not the best people to send out, whether it's dealing with somebody that's having a mental health break, sometimes even domestic violence situations, and a whole plethora of issues they get called about on a regular basis that really just are not the best calls for them to attend to. So can we have a comprehensive conversation about what real public safety will look like based on the data that we have from the calls that police get, that we are then able to begin thinking more deeply about mental health. We're able to think about household situations. We're able to think about medical situations and, you know, a whole series of issues that come into place. Now, you want to get my opinion and really push it. I think we need to have a deeper conversation about people who are qualified to be police officers in the first place. That's a whole nother conversation. I don't want to go down that tangential road right now, because I think our basis of choosing people to be police officers is way too low, which is part of the problem that we have. We don't have quality police officers because we don't necessarily get the best quality people to become police officers in the city of Philadelphia. So let me just also say this piece around the policing issue as well, that we spend too much time thinking about ways. Let me just say this. I don't think we'll ever get away from we have to have some level of police. I've grown up and known some folk that need to be in jail. Bottom line. I just know some folk. I noticed I might get my progressive card pulled today on this one, but my lived experience says that there's evil in this world, and that there are some people that are just going to do whatever they want to do, regardless of what the rules are and anything else. And since they can't get themselves together or refuse to be reformed and changed, we can do that. I think some of the ideas, especially for those that are police abolitionists out there, are completely idealistic and completely unrealistic when it comes to dealing with humanity in the way that we are. We just had an election where people voted for 70+ million people voted for white supremacy, misogyny, sexism, and oppression of racial communities in this country. Do you think who's going to break that up? Who's going to break that up? When the Minutemen come walking down the street, the patriot groups come walking down the street, who's going to handle that? Otherwise it's going to turn into the Wild Wild West. So I just think that there's always going to be some level of policing. I don't necessarily know it has to be I know for a fact it does not have to be what we're looking at right now, but I do think we need to think about the broader scope of public safety. Now, if defund started that conversation, great. But I think what I'm concerned about is that we're so busy arguing about a term that we're not getting to the issue behind the term.
Well, the term can prevent that from happening. If the term has become associated with abolish the police in 5 years and abolish all carceral systems, then that term can kind of derail the conversation.
Absolutely.
And again, listen, I am at the table with a number of groups that are committed to defunding the police. And again, there is no agreement with activists and organizers at the table. And so I don't walk into this subject, uninformed and kind of just like reacting to Janice's article. I'm sharing some things that I have really been struggling with based on what I hear from folk, because as a pastor, I represent people who live in every community in Philadelphia, those who live in Society Hill, in, very plush environments, and then those who live in some of the rougher and more economically challenged zip codes in the city of Philadelphia. So I'm not, speaking, from one vantage point. And for the people who are experiencing the issues of violence the most, I continue to ask the question, how does this fall on their ears? Because you're talking about some people need to be in jail. I was one of those persons at one point in my life. Now, thankfully, I was able to change my life, but there was a time where if I were caught and put on timeout, it would have been well-deserved and well-earned. And because I was a threat to myself and to society. And so I don't know that, I know that it's idealistic to want to believe that. And I think that the desire for it comes from a real place, not to mention the reality of the history of how brutal the police have been to black people, how brutal they continue to be. I told you I was watching the trial of 7 yesterday. And man, I mean, it just gets your blood boiling watching how they did Bobby Seale, the killing of Fred Hampton, the ways in which the police have always been with us and continue to be. And yet, that said, to say to a community, well, we're going to take all the police away and elders in the community will handle all of the conflicts, I just don't think that is a workable plan. Personally, I don't, and I would not want to advocate or put my name on something that makes people less safe at the end of the day, when if we're talking about public safety, everything that we ought to be thinking about has to be about what is going to make the people I love the most safe.
That's right.
And so I can't get with that just because I don't think it's going to make people more safe. And not yanking everything out in 5 years and saying, now, kumbaya, y'all work it out.
That's right. That's
Village,
right.
the elders. I'm like, man, these young bucks don't respect elders.
Well, it goes back to the fact I go back to the fact when we had the thing on stop and frisk. I wasn't there, but you told me the story about the 500 people that were packed into the church, and that there were seniors there that were coming because they wanted more police, not less. Right.
Right. Because what they wanted and what they were articulating was this. So the way they articulated their desire was, I thought this meeting was for more police, which is what I want because my neighborhood's off the chain. What they were really saying is, I want public safety.
That's right.
And that has to be the conversation. And so, so I think, listen, let's go to the callers. We got a couple on before the break. Mike, we'll give you a couple of minutes there, and then Will Mega. Come on, Mike.
Hello, gentlemen. How are you today?
Doing well. Good morning.
I have to agree with your comment. And I just wanted to add that yesterday there was a discussion that I viewed on Zoom between Michael Harrison, who's the current police chief in Baltimore, and used to be the police chief in New Orleans, and Charles Ramsey, who used to be the police chief in Philadelphia. And I thought it was kind of interesting that they mentioned a lot of the things that we've been talking about collectively here in the city. And they seem to be very supportive.
All right. Hey, is that somewhere that people can find it, Michael?
They recorded it, and I'm going to try and find out how I can get a hold of it. I certainly will send it to you.
All right. So if you could text the link to me. Michael actually works with Live Free. I thought that was you. But yeah, shoot the link to me, and I'll post it in the Facebook chat. Thanks a lot, Mike, for the call.
Okay. Take care.
All right. Will Mega, good morning.
Good morning, brothers. How are you?
Good.
Great.
What concerned me most about President Obama's statement was, I think, his lack of awareness of how what he says drastically can negatively impact grassroots, real organizers, grassroots, real activist push. I just thought he ignored something that was glaring to me, and that was the Department of Justice under Eric Holder, when they were investigating police departments across this country and saw it completely honeycombed with racism. And Eric Holder's specific points to say in Ferguson that he was willing to go as far as completely, his words, quote unquote, dismantling their police department. If that's not defunding, I don't know what is. And so I think there's a fine line there where I think President Obama, of all people, who has a very good understanding of the complexities of what's going on in our police departments across this country, I think he should have been more responsible to give more context, not just in the phrase, but in why there's a call for defunding police and what his administration found in doing so. I think that would have given a little more balance and been a bit more fair.
Okay. All right, Will. And hey, real quick, Will. I mean, I think it's fair to say that, you know, because I am also for dismantling. Dismantling is about tearing something down and building back up. And sometimes, if you want to tear a foundation of a house, you tear it down, but you then prop it up with something while it's being worked on, and then you rebuild it on that new foundation, right? So, but dismantling and rebuilding is something different than the call that I know some activists are at, which is no, dismantle and that's it, zero it out. Yeah. And never bring anything back. Do you think that's actually a workable plan?
What I think these folks are doing is no different than what the seniors who are calling for police are wanting, right? And they're both calling for the same thing in two different ways. Both the seniors are tired of being captives and victims in their own community through the very small amount of people who continue to do crime, and activists are being extreme in their desire to get rid of the crime that's done to communities by the no good officers who do it. And so both of them need to see that they have something in common, right? That these folks want to be safe in their communities, and neither one of them can figure out exactly how to get to the root of that problem. And that's why I say President Obama is uniquely qualified to have spoken to that, and I think he dropped the ball on this one. Just like I thought he dropped the ball when he was on 60 Minutes last week, and he said the American that he most admired out of all Americans in this country, dead or alive, was Abraham Lincoln. Damn.
Yeah. Well, he's a president, so it doesn't surprise me he's going to go to a president. But you're right. I get that, and I agree with you. Damn. All right. Hey, we got to take a break. I thought he'd go like Harriet Tubman or Frederick Douglass or Richard Allen, somebody like that. Hey, Will, thank you for the call as always. We're over time, and we'll be back to continue this conversation. Post your thoughts in Facebook, and we'll read some of those on the other side of the break. It's the Power Hour.
Buying something from a dealer just sounds a bit, well, put it like this. My cousin Ray Ray got arrested for buying something from a dealer. So why would you want to buy your car from a dealer? Hi, everybody. This is Nick inviting you to buy your next car from Jerry over at Cardex. See, they're not dealers. They're like a car concierge service. They design a car around you. Almost any make. If it's not on the lot, they'll go out and get it for you. So use my car concierge, where I've already bought 4 cars. Cardex at 116 East Glenside Avenue in Glenside, Pennsylvania. Check them out online at cardexinc.com. Or call Cardex at 215-886-3230.
Come smile with Champion Dentistry, the house of smiles. Champion Dentistry has been helping to create, maintain, and accentuate healthy, beautiful smiles for over 30 years. Come have your teeth, gums, and smile checked out with the WURD Cleaning Special. Call now at 215-473-4717 to get your Champion smile, or visit them at 1170 North 63rd Street.
Tune in every Saturday at 6 p.m. to Recovery Talk 101 with your host, Rick Ford, talking about addiction, treatment, and recovery, right here on WURD Radio. Keeping you informed. As a community service, WURD Radio and the Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium wants to keep you informed about where you can get no-cost, barrier-free COVID-19 testing this week. These locations offer free flu shots and coronavirus testing. Monday, November 30th from 10 a.m. till 2 p.m. at SEPTA Fern Rock Transportation Center, 11th Street and Nedrow Avenue in Philadelphia. Tuesday, December 1st from 10 a.m. till 2 p.m. at SEPTA Fraser Yard, 32 Sproul Road in Malvern. Thursday, December 3rd from 3 p.m. till 7 p.m. at Mastery Charter School Pickett Campus, 5700 Wayne Avenue in Philadelphia. And Saturday, December 5th from 12 noon to 4 p.m. at Mastery Charter School Shoemaker Campus, 5301 Media Street in Philadelphia. Stay informed and stay well with WURD Radio. 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Now, a traffic update on WURD Radio.
Good morning. This report sponsored by CVS. Still not too bad here in Philadelphia. A couple of slow spots, though, through construction. Southbound 95, coming down through Bridge, jamming through that work zone. South of that, no problems. Northbound side, not a bad ride there this morning. I do watch for a construction pattern northbound between Broad Street and the Walt Whitman Bridge. Now looking at the Schuylkill Expressway westbound, that is jamming now University through the Vine Expressway through construction. West of that, not bad yet. Eastbound side looks pretty good. PA Turnpike, Blue River moving fine. Major roads in New Jersey off to a quiet start. CVS pharmacists have a proprietary search tool that analyzes ways to help lower your prescription costs. Come in or call today to get a free prescription savings review with CVS. Savings vary. Not all patients eligible for savings. Ask pharmacists for details. For more traffic information, log on to sigalert.com. Jim Bachman with your Philadelphia area traffic.
Now, a WURD weather update. Here's NBC 10 First Alert meteorologist Bill Henley.
Clouds and rain moving our way as we head into the weekend, but today we will enjoy sunshine. And after a cold start this morning, we'll warm to 52 in the afternoon. Clouds increasing tonight, a chance of an afternoon shower tomorrow, 52 degrees. Then a soaking rain with gusty winds and chilly conditions Saturday, a high of 48. Clearing and chilly on Sunday. I'm NBC 10 First Alert meteorologist Bill Henley with your most accurate forecast. Count on it.
You're listening to WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD, independent black media.
Welcome back to the Power Hour. Hey, WURD listeners, tune in to WURD Radio Friday, December 4th for a virtual empowerment experience at 1 p.m. honoring radio icon Cody Anderson. WURD Radio's 5th annual empowerment experience celebrating the history and impact of black radio in Philadelphia will take place virtually on WURD Radio's 96.1 FM and 900 AM. And you can also watch it via Facebook Live through WURD TV or YouTube or WURDRadio.com. The virtual event will be honoring radio icon Cody Anderson with remarkable presentations by his son Bill Anderson, Kenny Gamble, Yolanda Van Zant, and more. The virtual experience will begin at 1 p.m. and feature a virtual roundtable with WURD host and Cody Anderson, music, poetry, reflections, and more. This virtual event is free Registration is required. For more information and to register, go to wordradio.com. All right, celebrating Cody. Thank you, Cody, for everything that you have done and continue to do for Black Radio in Philadelphia. Black Radio in Philadelphia. I'll never forget, I just got to tell the story real quick. So I came in one night getting ready to do solutions. Cody said, "Who you got on?" And I said, "I haven't been able to get anybody on for the show tonight. I was, trying to do it. A lot of people don't know. You and I actually have other jobs outside of this. This is not our main job." And
for correction, this is not a job, period. Hope somebody's listening to that.
So Cody says to me, he's like, "Well, what do you want to talk about?" I told him what I wanted to talk about. 3 minutes later, Cody had a guest lined up for me. He just made a quick phone call.
Are you serious?
Yes, I am. He was like, "This is what you do. This is who you call. Tell them I said that they need to talk to you." And literally within minutes, I had a guest for the program, and it turned out great. It was a great guest, and and I was like, "Man, you got power, bro. You got power." It was awesome.
Yeah, that's the power of those deep relationships, man.
That's right. Absolutely.
Yes.
Years of relationships. Yes.
So so there's a raging conversation going on social media this morning on Facebook Live about what defunding means, and again, I've been hesitant to bring this conversation up because I know within the circle that I roll with, it kind of bothers people. Folk don't want to ever bring this part of the conversation out, that there is this tension within the movement. But at a certain point, if you don't address it, right? I mean, I've kind of always believed that at a certain place, we're going to get to the point where it kind of diverges and somebody's going to adopt a new phrase or a new word or a new way of talking about the demand that they want. Because clearly there are groups that are viewing this differently. For some, public safety means literally no police again, no jails, to which I always say, well, so if you don't have jails, let me just start with the low-hanging fruit. What do you do with pedophiles who cannot stop abusing children? Are we okay with the fact that those people now just wander the streets? And because that's what you're saying, if you're saying that there are no carceral systems, what do we do with rapists? So with men who just feel it's their right to continually rape women against their will, do we not try to detain those people and put them away and, try to rehabilitate them? I'm not saying people can't be, I don't subscribe to the fact that people can't be rehabilitated, but I do believe that people need to go in some form of timeout. What do we do with people who feel it's their right to walk into a store, take whatever they want, shoot and kill people if that's what happens? Are we really saying that we're ready for that? And I don't think so. And so I don't, look, nobody is more unhappy about the way the police treat us and the way that the mass incarceration system disproportionately impacts Black people than me. You're not going to get, a more tireless advocate on it. But that does not mean that, that the solution is we just get rid of it all and don't think about it anymore. The real challenge is, what do you put in its place?
Yeah.
And that's hard work.
I thank you for bringing that up. Not that I necessarily want to go that extreme with some of the examples, but I do believe that, I'll go back to what I said earlier. There's some people that are just plain evil. I knew some of these kids growing up here in Philadelphia, and they turned out exactly like they behaved in elementary school, for a variety of reasons. And I think you have to have some level of policing. You have to have some level of incarceration. Let me just say this, and as a Christian minister, it's hard to say this. Some people can't be rehabilitated. Bottom line, they just can't. And I'm sure people who are not trained in not being able to rehabilitate people are not going to be able to do that in the streets. You're also making those folk that are making judgments and decisions out there in the community extremely vulnerable at the same time. So it's a great idea. I think it is a great idea as a starting point to be able to talk about public safety and reform for our communities, about necessary services and support that are needed in the African American community. Totally get it. Deeply appreciate that. It's a great slogan as a way to get started, but The bottom line is, and and you and I talk about this all the time, I'm as left as they get. I'm sorry. We need jails and we need some police. No, we don't need everything that we got, but we don't need everything. We don't need nothing.
So, listen, and I wanted to say this, that so the point that you're making, that if you're using it as a negotiating tool, right? So and that's also, listen, don't ever think that in the movement throughout the human struggle, especially for black folk in America, that we have not come and asked for demands that sound so unreasonable. I think demands always should be unreasonable. You know what? We spent $770 million on police. That should be cut in half. You should only have half the cops you have right now, and let's take that money and then put it in other things that will make us safe. To some, that's unreasonable, yeah, but that's where we're going to start with negotiation, right? And then we begin to negotiate towards something that, society can live with. But I am telling you, because I've had these conversations with people, for some people, saying abolish the police is not a negotiating tactic. It is real. It is no, never again. No type of police, not security guards, not private police, nothing. The elders will work it out. And I see Joe Simmons in here kind of, sharing with us people like the Fruit of Islam, Enon's Mighty Men of Enon. And those are great examples. But now you're talking about basically every community defends itself in the way that they want. And that's ultimately, look, I'm not saying the cops don't act like gangs, because they do in some places like Philadelphia. But that will really lead to, I don't want to have to think.
It goes back to the uprising. It goes back to the uprising when the folk in South Philly were trying to protect the Columbus statue, and they started roving the streets. And basically every black person that came into the neighborhood was suspect, right? And who's controlling that? Will Mega points out in here, who's going to hold these groups, the Fruit of Islam, the Men of Iron, constitutionally responsible for the work that they're doing in the community, right? So there's a whole lot of issues that are there. There are the programs like, Town Watch, right, where people who walk the streets at night, they got the flashlights, they call the police, they see something going on. That's cool. But even those groups, they have a hard time getting people to volunteer and to stay engaged over a long period of time to be able to do that. When I was in Norristown, I was on council at Norristown, we had a Town Watch program. They were always looking for volunteers. People didn't show up. They didn't want to do their shift. They wanted to be off for the night. They wanted to go do something different. It's a challenge. It's a challenge.
Hey, I got it. So I find myself with Raphael in a place of agreement. He's been saying this all throughout the show.
We need to mark this. We need to demark this time.
Yeah, 6:54 a.m., 12/3/2020. But Raphael says that for some of the folk, and I won't say all Raphael, but I will say some of the people that I've met are truly anarchists.
Yeah.
I have met anarchists, real anarchists, who don't want any kind of control over anyone. I would probably imagine they probably were this way in their homes with their parents, where it's like they don't want any authority over them. And I'm like, I understand where that comes from, because again, I am a black man in America. I'm 54 years old. I've been being stopped and detained by the police since I was in my preteen years. So I know what it is, and it does not stop. It has not stopped. And every time I encounter law enforcement, I have to make sure that I help that officer and myself get home without being on YouTube or Facebook and going viral. And that should not be. And yet I can't let that get a hold of me and forget that at the end of the day, it is about public safety for all. And if we're not going to throw a suggestion out that is not going to make our grandmothers and grandfathers and the most vulnerable in our communities more safe, and instead make them less safe, I cannot sign my name to it. And I know we're out of time, but I just had to get that off my chest this morning.
I got you. All right. Well, thanks everybody for this great, invigorating conversation. The blood is just moving through the body this morning. Thank you for Quasa holding the board down. Thank you for our callers, Michael and Will. Thank you everybody jumping on Facebook Live. Thank you to all the YouTubers out there. Thank you, Dr. Tyler. We'll be back tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. to bring you the latest news happenings around Philadelphia, and of course our opinions. Listen, folk, get out there, change the damn world, because if you don't, nobody else will. Peace.
I've been walking with my face turned to the sun. Wait, I'm